complicated, but here to uncomplicate things with his former prosecutor, Keith Lamar. And Seema talked a little bit about it there, but let's reiterate because it gets a little dicey. You've got your two main accusers. You then have Annabella Sciorra, who, as Seema said, is the insurance policy for that predatory assault. And then you have three other women that are going to come in and tell their story, the Molyneux witnesses. In all, 6 women telling their stories. Annabella Sciorra is very unique because the jury will use her story to possibly arrive at the conclusion of a guilty verdict in the predatory sexual assault charge, the most important one for the prosecutors because that's the one that puts him away for life. Yeah. How does it work? So she comes in, tells her story, but jurors aren't asked to find him guilty of raping her, but they're asked to take in her story into account on this other predatory, and the state needs 2 out of 3.
Right. So it's showing basically, who he is. Is he a predator? Is it a one-time offense? Is this something where it's like, oh, this is a one-time thing, or just a consistent thing that happens over and over again? Her story is so crucial because at the end of the day, it's going to show that, hey, if you want to work with Harvey Weinstein, you got to do some things.
And the predatory sexual assault charge is the most significant because the penalty is the highest with a life sentence. To get to that, jurors have to believe at least two stories, right? Mm-hmm. And they can only choose between accuser 1, 2, and Annabella. Right. If they, at the end of the day, say, 1 I didn't believe, or 2 was a little not a reasonable, Annabella can come in. Her story can put them over the top, and they can say, yes, he's guilty of predatory sexual assault because I believed Jane Doe 1 and Annabella, or
Correct.
2 and Annabella.
Well, that's why it's so important.
Huge win for the prosecution.
Huge win. I know that the defense was like, oh, they're just trying to do this. I'm like, well, shoot, they better do it. If you want to, it's a great insurance policy. It shows that one of the victims' story, I think they weren't as confident in. So to have her there to talk about that, I think that's great. Especially about, once again, who is she? And then what is her story and is it believable? And then you have those 3 other people on top of her story that might help the jury to believe, you know what, I heard what she said earlier and it sounds very similar to what she said. I believe the story about the predatory.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. As Keith just said, Annabella Sciorra is not the only witness who the state hopes will show this pattern in behavior of Harvey Weinstein. 3 Jane Doe witnesses will be allowed to testify. Could their testimony be enough to send Harvey Weinstein away for life? We're going to talk about those 3 others and their stories after the break. Stay with us.